What's going on, guys? We're going to be ranking the Wizard101 schools based off of PvE and how easy they are to solo. Now, this tier list is completely my opinion. Feel free to argue in the comments, but this is just going to be generally a guide for if you are a solo player, you're coming back to the game, maybe you're playing the game for the first time even. This is going to help you get your ideas on what school you should play if you're going to be mainly a solo player. So we're going to go in order of Balance, Death, Fire, Ice, Life, Myth, and Storm. So to start off, we're going to go with Balance. Balance, unfortunately, for me, is going to go immediately into C tier. Now, I'm putting Balance here not because it's a bad school. Balance can be a great school later game and in duos. However, early game, Balance suffers from a lot of things. You're not going to have a Prism early game, which means that you're not going to be able to fight the bosses of the same school as you effectively almost at all unless you go and get spells from other schools. And it's just overall, it's not going to be the greatest experience for you. The hits are okay. You get an AoE pretty early on, but Balance as a solo, especially Arc 1, Arc 2, you're going to be struggling. It's not going to be a fun experience for the most part. I could see why a lot of people who pick Balance early on often switch to other schools, especially if they're solo players. That Prism is really a major holdback, and Balance is also, in my opinion, mainly a support school in the beginning. So Balance would be great, and maybe I'll eventually make a duo tier list. But Balance would be great in a duo, but unfortunately, as a solo, it's just not going to be your best school. So now we're going with Death. Death, obviously, everyone in the community pretty much agrees with this. It has to go straight to S tier. Death as a school is amazing right now. It can't be touched by any other school, solo play-wise, in my opinion. You have lifesteal. Your hits, even your 7-pip AoE, Scarecrow, is doing lifesteal to every single enemy that you hit. So it makes you almost impossible to kill. Now, I do understand that a little earlier on, you're going to be struggling because you don't get an AoE. That can be circumvented in a few ways, such as getting, I believe, the Gloomy Eye Pet. But let's say we didn't even include that at all. The grind, in my opinion, from level 1 to level 48, where you're going to get Scarecrow, does not take very long. It's a relatively quick journey compared to some of the later game content like Arc 2, where it takes a lot longer to get certain spells that you're looking for, like Call of Cthulhu, for example, the level 100 Death spell, their first Shad spell. Death, you have great health early on. Late game, you have great health. Great damage, especially from a school that has good health. It's odd normally to see a school that has good health and good damage, but Death has really does have the best of both worlds. I don't know if there's much more that needs to be said about Death School. It's really just overpowered. The lifesteal just puts it in a tier of its own, because even if you're about to die and you hit the enemy, you're healing that HP back. You're almost indestructible as as a Death main. Now, Fire, I know I talk about this on stream a little bit sometimes. It is not, I will admit, later game is not the best school. Well, no, later game is a great school, sorry. Earlier game, it is not the best school. In mid game, I'd say it's not really the best school because dots kind of are sucky, unfortunately. What I'm gonna do, I'm going to put it in B tier. I'm enjoying my Fire playthrough. I can't lie. I really enjoy Fire. Fire's a great school, and I feel like I've had a lot of fun on it. My only issue with Fire is that the dot mechanic later on, when you're fighting harder bosses, is going to screw you, unfortunately. The only boss where I can even think that would be useful for is Belloc, who, requires you to hit him every single round. That's where a dot comes in, Although I do believe it's a great school, great damage output, I'd say that Fire would be more useful in a duo, and it is going to get a little harder later in the game, as compared to anything else, So that's why I ranked it at B. You don't really have the best health. You do get an early AoE, Meteor, which is great. Meteor basically does everything you could ever need it to. Fire Dragon's an okay 7 pip. It's not the best, it's not the worst. It does what you need it to do, you know? I don't know if there's much more that needs to be said about Fire. Now, this ranking isn't going to shock a whole lot of you who are veterans in the Wiz community, but Ice is going to D tier. Ice, just as a school right now, is just... they're so nerfed into the dirt, it's not even funny. You know, you don't get a blade until you're level 38. You don't get anything from Ice. It really just, like... The damage output is really bad. Frost Giant isn't the best 7 pip AoE, for sure. It's probably the worst one out of all 7. I honestly find Ice solo play to be just really irritating. You don't have the damage output to keep up with, you know, the people around your level. And what can you do? Tower shield? You know, like, with Ice, I feel like there's not a whole lot of opportunity, especially even later game, to do the damage that other schools are doing. I understand that you might have a lot of health, and that, you know, your chance to fizzle a spell is way lower way lower than other schools. But Ice, just as a school right now, is just, I can't see it being viable, especially early game and late game. You don't do enough damage. In a duo, this might be a different conversation, but even still, Ice in a duo is not necessarily the best school to be in a duo either. It's just, you know, it's a shame that they nerfed Ice into the dirt. I truly believe that Ice needs some reworks, and the whole reason why I ranked Ice lower than Balance is because Balance at least picks up later game, whereas Ice stays the same, you know, high HP but low damage. And I think it's a little ridiculous that they nerfed it that much. Now, if we move into A tier, we are going to put Life. Life is a great school for soloing. I can say by far, Life is probably going to be second best for soloing. You can heal yourself first and foremost. That is very important. You can heal yourself almost at all times. You have great support, so if you need to do a team up, you can. You can be a supporting school. Life also has, you know, level 48, you get Forest Lord. Forest Lord is an underrated spell, in my opinion. Probably the most underrated 7 pip in the game. It is great. It does good damage. You know, Life also struggles from the thing with death. You don't get an AoE early on, which does kind of suck, unfortunately. It's not like... there are ways to circumvent it. So I believe you can get a Kookaburra pet, and that'll give you an AoE. Or, you know, if you're willing to spend some crowns, you can get Rat Spin. But just overall, it is not the best for early game, but late game it picks up because you get some strong spells like Forest Lord. You can heal yourself. You have good HP. You're not going to be fizzling as much as other schools, as much as you might say you are. Trust me, you're not. Life overall is a great school if you want a solo experience. It's going to be probably the second easiest behind Death. Just because you have that opportunity to heal, you have that opportunity to do damage, you can be support if you have to when you do team ups. You know, Life is just a great school overall. Alright, now we're going to do Myth. Myth is, in my opinion, going to go right next to Life for ease of soloing. And I know this is going to come to a shock to a lot of people. Myth, I believe, currently is one of the most overhated schools. I believe it's overhated because people are looking at the gimmicks of Myth, which is, you know, the minions. Everyone looks at minions in the current meta, and they're like, okay, minions suck. They're not the best. Everyone knows. It's not really a secret, minions suck. There's a few exceptions with a few good minions that maybe can help you on earlier in the game, but later in the game, have you ever seen a single person use a minion? No. Like, but other than that, Myth has good HP, good damage. That is great for them. They have Orthrus, the strongest 7 pip AoE in the game, 700 flat damage. No spellman upgrades, 700 flat, which is great. They do really good damage. You get Humunga Frog, I believe at level 22, but that could be level 28. you're just like, as Myth, you're going to be tanking through. You're not going to be struggling as much as the schools below it, in fights, or you're going to be breezing through the game pretty much on a Myth the same way you would on a Life or a Death. It should be a pretty similar gameplay where you're kind of just breezing through. I mean, you can get a few spells from other schools, like Faint from Death, or maybe some stuff from Myth, and maybe some stuff from Balance, and Myth will be cruising. They just have really good damage, really good, some decent health to back that up. So I think Myth is one of the most overhated schools, but it is actually great currently if you want to solo play for sure. And minions can have their use, especially early game. So if you're playing early game, and you want to use a minion, use a minion. No one's going to kill you for it. Okay. Now, I know you've all been wondering and waiting. I know I say on my stream all the time, Storm, my favorite school. But I'm going to give you an objective opinion on it. Storm is going to go into high B, low A. I think where I'm going to put it currently, high B. It might come to a shock. Storm is a great school. I personally really enjoy the gameplay. It can be challenging at first. Before you get Tempest, before you get a little know-how on how to use Storm, you're going to be fizzling a lot early game. You're going to be, struggling with HP. You're going to be getting killed fast. Storm is a hard playthrough, especially in the beginning. However, it does get easier. Like I said, you get Tempest. You get Stormlord. Those are some of the best spells in the entire game. Tempest is great for mob clearing. Some people use it all the way to Wallerer because Tempest is so good. I mean, it's probably one of the best spells in the entire game. No holds barred. It's like actually insane. Stormlord, it stuns your enemies. You get some good spells. Not Medusa. Can't remember her name, but you have a Sirens, I believe. Great spell. You just have some really good stuff on Storm. However, the only thing that holds Storms back is the HP. If Storm even had marginally more HP, they would be an A tier, probably above Myth. However, because this is a solo tier list, you are going to start struggling around the mid game on a Storm. Once you get to about Avalon is when Storm struggle really starts to kick in. Early game, I'd say, until you get Zeus Gear, it's a little bit of a struggle. Then once you get Zeus Gear, you're not going to be fizzling as much. You get good accuracy. Waterworks-wise, Storm is great. You won't be fizzling at all after you get your first major gear set for the most part. But it's just the HP that holds Storm back from me putting in A for solo anyways. Other than that, if it had a little higher HP, and I'm sure you can supplement that with gear, sockets. You can even supplement with a pet with some resist. There's ways to circumvent this, but if we're looking at just the school, it has to go in B tier because of the HP. Because the HP is going to struggle a little bit. So, yeah. That is why I ranked each school as I did for solo playlist. I personally maybe would make some changes to this. Maybe Storm would go in A. Maybe a little bit above Myth. But generally, I'm okay with this list. Feel free to argue, what you believe each school deserves their rankings in the comments. And, yeah. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Feel free to tune in. I go live on Twitch, twitch.tv/ShinRider. I go live basically every day that I don't have work, which is most days, just not Mondays and Wednesdays. So, yeah. Everyone have a good day.